What's the creepiest or most unexplainable thing you've ever seen that you haven't shared anywhere? Serious. I was in bed at night, woken up by the sound of steps on my roof tiling. I think I was about 13 at the time. I see a shadow walk past my skylight, unsure of what it was. I look outside my side window and see a man dressed in all black looking out from the construction scaffolding. After a while he looks into my window and I try to hide. My brother also saw him. We never found out what happened to him, but the police were informed. When I was 20 I visited a town in Italy that has a number of medieval towers that you can climb. My girlfriend didn't want to climb any, so I went up one on my own and was the only person at the time doing so. It was a sunny day when I entered the tower. There was a flight of stairs that wound around the edge of the tower and no windows. Climbing the tower took at the very most 5 minutes. At the top of the stairs there was a ladder and a trapdoor that opened up onto the roof of the tower. When I opened it, I found the weather had changed dramatically and was overcast and threatening. I forget if there was thunder or not, but I was genuinely concerned about lightning. Being at the top of a tall tower in that weather, I cautiously climbed out onto the roof just to have a quick look before going straight down. The roof was surrounded with a sort of metal cage of bars that were clearly intended to prevent anyone falling/jumping off the tower. I heard some thunder and saw electricity arc between some of the bars, not a blinding lightning strike, just arcing. I decided that the tower was imminently going to be struck and descended as quickly as I could. At the bottom I was surprised to find the weather was again sunny with a clear sky. My girlfriend could tell I was shaken and was amazed when I told her I thought that maybe there had been lightning. The weather hadn't changed whilst I'd been up the tower. I've started to tell the story a couple of times, but it's just too weird to expect anyone to believe. I have literally no explanation. I'm very much a skeptic when it comes to the paranormal. I'm not religious, and I've had no other weird experiences like this. In short, I'm not your stereotypical spooky things happen to me kind of person. And yet, edit, did a bit of googling, and I'm 90% sure it was the Torgrosser in San Gimignano. It doesn't have a cage around the top, but there is a metal cage around the bells and I guess that's what I remember. I always feel weird vibes from old European structures. Not like anything urgent that makes me wanna immediately get out of there, but it's like I don't belong there. That there's this whole history to it. Some cruel times that I don't wanna disturb. I was 10y/0 riding my bicycle at dusk along the road I lived on, which was parallel to a set of railroad tracks. I moved off the road as a car sped by and a beer bottle came sailing at me from the front passenger seat. I could see two young women turned around laughing at me through the back window. I flipped them off and kept riding. About 30 seconds later, I heard the train slam into them. A number of years ago, I was using an online chat site and got talking to a woman who claimed to live around 50 miles from me. We chatted quite happily for a couple of days. Then on the third day, a Saturday night, she was online and we were chatting. But she seemed different somehow. Something just didn't seem right. But I couldn't put my finger on it. She explained that she was drinking, and I assumed that this was the reason behind the melancholy. We continued chatting, and she put on a cam, so I could see her there drinking as we chatted. Over a couple hours of chatting her mood appeared to grow darker, and she appeared distressed, but was hesitant to elaborate further. She left and returned around 30 minutes later, and appeared drunker and more distressed. This time she had a stack of tablets on the table in front of her. She claimed that she couldn't go on, and started to take tablet after tablet. I had no idea what this medication was. She was continuing to take more and more tablets and her speech was getting more and more slurred. I was suddenly in a terrible position. Was I seeing someone take their own life on a live stream and totally unable to do anything? All I had was a name and a town, both of which could be false. I made the excuse of needing the toilet and left the room, and took this opportunity to call my local police and explained the situation. The police took what details I knew, and I was told to go back and try and keep her talking and try and get further details from her. They sent a plainclothed officer to my house, and whilst I was chatting to her he pulled up the chat logs and history on his laptop. By this time her speech was becoming more and more incoherent and the cam was knocked so it was impossible to see her. Soon the connection was lost. Was this real? Was it fake? I had no idea of knowing. The police officer was during this time on the phone with the station giving them what information he had been able to obtain. He then left leaving me to contemplate. The next evening I got a call from the local police station, who wanted to thank me. The police had managed to trace her through her IP address and had been able to attend. It apparently was a genuine suicide attempt and she had been taken to hospital and was subsequently undergoing treatment. Damn. Good on you for that. Also nice job from the cops. Vanta Black MH-60 helicopters, Black Hawks. This isn't a great story because words don't describe it, but here goes. I was working at an airfield and parked these guys during the day. By the end of my shift it had grown dark. The pilots returned to depart and I escorted them to where I had parked the birds. I can't understate this enough. They were 100% invisible until you got about 5 feet from them. No reflection from metal, no lights, no anything. I only knew they were there because I put them there, and looking at the space where I placed them felt like staring at a black hole. There was just a void. The eerie part was no light from behind them. You couldn't see trees, stars, the normal things you see in the moonlight. It was just pure nothingness. To top it off, when they spin up they don't sound like they are coming from the place they are. Rather the sound seems to issue from everywhere at once. Imagine starting a car that you can't see in the dark that simultaneously sound like it is right in front of you, behind you, and in your garage. I don't know how to eloquate how bizarre and unsettling it is to see complete nothingness where something should be. It wasn't the absence of something. It was the absence of everything. It was such an unimportant mundane thing. Too. If they cared even a little bit they wouldn't have landed at a public airfield. It makes me wonder what sort of bananas shit the military has that they don't want us to know about. When my daughter was very young, 3 to 4, we were on a family vacation in a state park lodge. Our room had exposed wood ceiling beams to match the decor. Important later. It was supposed to be nap time for my daughter, but she was quietly playing by herself and just chatting away, and the wife and I were eating on the other bed. Out of the blue my daughter turns to me and asks for a piece of rope. I asked why she needed the rope and she nonchalantly replies it is for my friend, the purple girl on the ceiling. My wife asks what friend and my daughter responds I've been talking with the little purple girl hanging from that wood up there. She asked me for another piece of rope. Needless to say that nap time was over and we quickly exited the room. Creepy. It reminds me of a time my daughter was the same age and asked me, quite innocently and cheerfully, "Daddy, who is that old woman standing in the corner?" I looked up and she was pointing to the empty corner of the room we occupied alone together. I said, "Don't be silly, darling. You're imagining things." But I felt a cold prickle go across my scalp. I have a similar experience. My cousin was visiting, and while us adults talked in the living room his 4-year-old son was playing in the dining room. After a bit his son comes over and asks to play in the living room instead. His mom asks why. He says that old lady won't stop waving at me. We all just nodded and pretended that was a normal reason. Didn't want to scare the kid. I used to live in a house with 2 roommates. Let's call them Anna and Erica. I lived on the 2nd floor and Anna and Erica lived downstairs. Every night I would hear this thud coming from downstairs. I would investigate and it always came from Anna's room. I thought it was her doing burpees or working out at night, which seems dumb looking back. I never talked to Erica about it because I thought it was in my head, and since I was on the 2nd floor it never really bothered me. Fast forward 2 years and we all move into a new house with another roommate. Anna, Erica, and I live on the same floor upstairs. I start hearing the thud louder now. I go up to Anna's door and it sounds like she's hitting herself against a wall and whispering and crying or laughing. I also noticed when she left the room she had her sheets all scattered on the floor. I ask my other roommate Erica about it and she says she hears it too. Anna starts staying at her parents' house more often, but every time she comes home we hear the same thud noise. We started asking Anna about it, and she makes up excuses, like I was moving furniture or my porch door was swinging open. After we started questioning her more, she only came to our house maybe once a month to pick up some clothes. It was so strange. I never think we'll get an explanation. When I was about 11 or 12, I went with my friend and my younger brother to play football in a park that was in a pretty remote place, so there were never many people. Basically 3 or 4 people came dressed in like Victorian style clothes, set up a box underneath a tree with big branches, tied a rope around it. One of them stood there with this noose around his neck, and then his friend kicked the box, so he was hanging. They took turns doing this, and we left. Was super weird thinking back to it, and I have to check with my brother whenever I think about it to make sure it actually happened. Edit. For people asking how did they not die? They were taking turns etc. From what I remember, the box mustn't have been particularly high relative to the length of the rope, so there wasn't much of a drop if any. I don't remember how long they were swinging for, but I suppose it must have been between 15 seconds to a minute. Then the friends would put the box back for the one hanging to stand on, so they could get down, and someone else would take their place. This sounds like an edgy photo shoot to me. A long time ago in primary/elementary school, me and my friend came to the school compound on a Sunday to explore. We came in the wee hours in the morning, and coupled that it was a Sunday, there was nobody in. We were walking along a corridor on the first floor, when suddenly we heard this thunderous noise above us. You know the sound where you drag a chair or a table across a floor? It was exactly that. But it sounded like there's multiple classrooms full of tables and chairs just moving around. It was loud. Very loud. And it was extremely sudden. There's no reason why anybody would be in school moving dozens of tables and chairs on their own on a Sunday 6 AM. We stood rooted, stared at each other for a second, and bolted. After we got out of school, he asked me whether I heard a lady screaming in the corridor. I said no. He didn't hear the dragging sounds either. 2 people hearing 2 separate things. That's more terrifying than if you both heard the same sound. Thanks for watching. Don't leave before leaving a like to this video.